Who do you reckon at the club? So who at the D's reckons that they are like looking absolutely prime at the moment? Like who's walking around thinking that they are just a flat 10?
James Harms always thinks he's a flat 10, and I don't know if you've ever met him or ever seen him, but he always thinks he looks the goods, and he loves his sleeves and his leg tats. Gus Brayshaw, for a man who dresses like a slob, always looks pretty good, but overall, Stephen May, he's a good-looking man. He's always dressed very well, but no, he thinks he looks good all the time. Actually, sorry, the one person who you might not know, Jake Bowie, who's in his first year, he played 7 games, premiership player, takes a selfie in the mirror every week, and we capture it. And every time he does it, we save it, we send it to the group. And this is just this is what kids do these days. I never did this when I was 18, but that's what they do.
How does your head size fit? This is a question we love to ask people. How big is your head in comparison to the average head?
Well, so you know when you start cricket when you're a 10, 11-year-old or even an 8-year-old, and they've got the kit bag and it's got the standard size helmet.
This one.
My pill never fit in those standard size helmets. So my old man, after the second game, had to go get a new helmet because my big bonce didn't want to get shoved inside. And I remember the first game, I blamed my score on how sore my head was because it didn't even fit in the helmet.
Yeah, too distracting. It was far too distracting.
Yeah.
Is there...
Oh, exactly.
Are there any AFL guys who you think, if you were to make a big-headed AFL team...
Yeah, who particularly from the
standouts?
D's. The D's or the Giants, like two teams you've got intimate knowledge of the size of people's bonces and coconuts. Who at the D's and the Giants are running the biggest heads going around, the biggest seed?
One of my favourite, he's one of my best mates at the footy club, and if you ever stand behind him, you see how big his hat has stretched to fit on his head, and that's Gorney.
Good.
You look, it's on the last little knob that gets stuck in, or he's even got a safety pin to join the two ends of a cap. Michael Hibbert, Angus Brayshaw has also got the biggest head going round. And in terms of the Giants, Matt DeBoer is like, you know, the dogs with the bobbling heads? That's Matty DeBoer.
Yeah, that's very good.
Yeah, it's like blokes that you stand behind, there's like a solar eclipse happening in front of you.
Is his shade? Yeah, okay. Yeah. No, don't worry about the zinc. I think Maxi's just lucky that he's 6'7", because his head looks perfectly proportioned, because everything else is massive.
Oh, you're spot on. He's just such a big human. He's probably going to have a big head, but even still, it is abnormally large for someone who is 6'7".
We've got to talk footy. Firstly, how's your recovery going? ACL in May. Preseason starting. So your training.
4th of May, I had surgery, and I've completed a full 2 weeks of preseason, and I did pretty much everything. So,
congrats,
in terms of my rehab, it's going really. Thank you, and to be sort of no different to anyone else on the day one of pre-season for me was a really good weight off my shoulders, and I trained really well for 2 weeks, and it just means going forward post-Christmas, just get to focus on playing footy and preparing the best I can for what's going to be another big year.
Hey, how are the other boys faring? They are obviously coming off a premiership win. Great year for Melbourne as a club in general. I feel like everyone was on board Melbourne winning. First time in 60 plus years, and you've overcome the curse of just generally being Melbourne, which is quite nice. What's the energy like around the place?
Oh, the energy's great. It's flowed on from being in Perth in a hub and doing it together, and coming into Melbourne, it's sort of it's a breath of fresh air to sort of be together in Melbourne and actually get the recognition that the club deserves. And we forgot as players how much joy it brings to the Melbourne fans, because we weren't in Melbourne, and now you get to see, and people come up to you and they say thank you so much for the actual amount of joy it's given them, because it's been so long and they've loved this footy club for so long, and it's been a really great feeling to be a part of a football club to bring so much joy to people.
Coming off the premiership, anyone celebrating particularly hard?
Oh, well, I wasn't playing while we were in Perth, so I was, having a grand old time.
Michael Hibbert running around like an absolute madman down at Optus Stadium. Yeah. Maybe he might have been one?
Oh, there was a few, and look, the boys were allowed to party as hard as they can because this meant a lot to each and every one of them. And I mean, it's funny because a lot of us came back only after 3 days after the game because we've all got family who we live with who are doing it tough by themselves in lockdown. So the best thing was after sort of 6 weeks, we were able to get together as a footy club and actually celebrate it in Melbourne and enjoy it. And I think that was actually a really good thing to do, to get away and then come back together as a group and enjoy it in Melbourne.